In the last hour, President Trump's son has released an email chain which he says shows he was explicitly offered sensitive information about Hillary Clinton as part of the Russian government's support for his father's presidential election campaign. Now, in one key exchange, the publicist Rob Goldstone, who arranged a meeting between Donald Trump Jr. and a Russian lawyer in June last year, says this is obviously very high level and sensitive information, but it is part of Russia and its government's support for Mr. Trump. Well, the email to Mr. Trump Jr., which he released on Twitter, says the Crown Prosecutor of Russia had offered to provide the Trump campaign with some official documents and information that would incriminate Hillary Clinton and her dealings with Russia and would be very useful to your father. Well, let's talk, first of all, to our North America reporter, Anthony Searcher. Now, these emails have only been released in the last hour. For a start, I suppose we have to start at the very beginning. This is presumably all authentic, because some of what's in there is quite astonishing.
Right, it is quite astonishing. I mean, this is not exculpatory for Donald Trump Jr. By any stretch of the imagination. I mean, this shows that he went into that meeting in Trump Tower on June 9th, 2016, in the heat of the presidential campaign, thinking that he was getting help from an official lawyer of the Russian government, that they were going to provide documents that would help his father because the Russian government wanted to help his father. And his response to those passages you read in the very next email is particularly damning. He said, "If it's what you say, I love it, especially later in the summer." So not only did he seem willing to accept the help of the Russian government, or what he saw as the help of the Russian government, but that he was already thinking about the timing of this, because later in the summer is when the presidential campaign, the general election against Hillary Clinton, really kicked into high gear. And it was also later in the summer, just about 2 months after this meeting, when the emails that had been hacked from Democratic National Committee servers and from a senior member of Clinton's campaign team first started dropping and causing all sorts of headaches for Hillary Clinton's presidential campaign. There's another key part about this. At the top of the email chain, it shows that Donald Trump Jr. forwarded these emails the day before the meeting to Donald Trump's son-in-law, Jared Kushner, and Paul Manafort, the then campaign chair of Donald Trump's campaign. They sat in on the meeting. They had said in a statement released by the White House that they didn't know what the meeting was going to be about when they went into it. But this seems to establish that at least the day before the meeting, they had emails in their inbox that detailed exactly what the meeting was going to be about. The fact that it was being set forward as a meeting with a government lawyer from Russia who was going to provide damaging information from the government of Russia itself to the Trump campaign to aid Donald Trump's presidential bid. And the whole series of emails is pretty remarkable, as you said.
I mean, so many questions flow from this. Give us a sense of what the reaction has been just in the last hour or so since they've come out. And I'm curious particularly whether there are people saying, well, if this sort of language and this was said to you back last year, surely that should have been revealed at the time.
Right, absolutely. I mean, you have to remember the context of this. For the past year almost, Donald Trump and members of his senior administration, from Donald Trump to Vice President Mike Pence, to Jared Kushner, to Jeff Sessions, the Attorney General, on down, have said that there was no contact between Donald Trump's campaign and the Russian government. There was certainly no collusion between the Trump campaign and senior members of the Trump campaign and the Russian government. But here you have, even if nothing came from this meeting, even if no documents exchange hands, you had Donald Trump's son and senior members of the campaign going into a meeting where they thought they were meeting with a Russian official who was going to provide aid to the campaign. I mean, that undercuts everything they've said, and it may cast some light on why it seems like Donald Trump and the officials in the administration have been very defensive about Russia questions from the beginning. Every time a question about a contact with a Russian official, whether it was Russian Ambassador Sergei Kislyak or the Russian banker that Jared Kushner met with in December, the first reaction from the Trump officials has been to deny it, and then later to go back and revise and say, yes, we did have a meeting, but it wasn't important. It was routine. This is a nothing burger is the term that you hear kicked around a lot. As far as the reaction here in Washington in the past hour, obviously it's been very dramatic. Everyone's been poring over these emails. I think the emails are even more incriminating, more explosive than anyone imagined going into this last night.
Anthony Zurcher, thanks very much for now at the White House. Let's talk as well to Christina Wilkie, who's an investigative journalist in the US, joins me from there. She's covered White House stories for many, many years as well. Thanks so much for talking to us so quickly. Your first reaction to this email chain?
That it was absolutely as bad or worse than anything one could have imagined. That the thing that struck me was how very black and white the offer of assistance was, how clear it was that this came from the Russian government, how the man who set up the meeting, Rob Goldstone, described how his contact had been in a meeting with Russian government officials, how it became out of that meeting that there was information that might be useful. The trail and the paper trail from one person to another is, I think, much starker than any journalist could have envisioned. And God knows it's so much different than what the Trumps initially said.
And what does that do then, given the denials that we have been hearing, or certainly the vagaries that we've been hearing about any relationship between Donald Trump and his administration and Russia?
I think it puts them on their heels in an entirely new way. I also think that the investigation and some of the focus will now shift to precisely what denials were made to whom. So, you can lie to the press, you can lie in an interview, but you can't lie to the FBI. And if you're in front of a congressional committee, you're also under oath. So the statements that were made about no knowledge of contacts or about no contacts that were made to the FBI by Jared Kushner specifically, and that will be made in the coming days and weeks by Trump family members and Trump campaign aides to congressional committees about precisely this, are going to have much higher stakes attached to them than conversations that the Trumps may have had in the past.
And the fact that this email chain has been released, it would appear entirely voluntarily, what does that tell us about the political nous or the political awareness of the people doing that?
The people who leaked it? You're asking?
Yes.
Yes.
Well, is the feeling where you are, Christina? Let's just clarify. Is the feeling where you are that this has been put on Twitter entirely voluntarily? What's your understanding?
No, absolutely not. My understanding is that the New York Times obtained these emails and was prepared to publish them, was about to, and informed Donald Trump Jr. that they would be being published. And so he basically beat them to it by a few minutes. And he claims in his statement that he's doing this for the sake of transparency. But frankly, I don't buy that.
OK, and so what does it tell us about the political awareness of those who were engaged in those conversations at that time?
The notion that nothing struck Donald Trump Jr. as slightly off about this communication and about taking this meeting raises very serious questions about the ethics that ran all the way through the Trump campaign, about what they were willing to do to win, about who they were willing to seek out, and what kind of associations they were willing to make. They come out of, understandably, out of a non-political background. So perhaps in business, the rules are a lot looser about who you can do business with and who you can't. And there's much less of a consideration about how that would look if it were made public in the future, which politicians are constantly aware of. The fact that nothing struck Donald Trump Jr. about this as being off speaks to his, frankly, poor judgment.
Very, very interesting to talk to you. Thanks so much for your time. Good that you could talk to us so quickly. Christina Wilkie there. Thanks for speaking to us from the United States.